Hello, guys. Today, we are going to discuss one of the most significant and controversial periods in India's democratic history, and that's the emergency from 1975 to 77. So, this era under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi is often seen as a dark chapter that tested the resilience of Indian democracy. So let's get into the details of this discussion. Okay. So the constitutional framework and everything we will discuss. So guys, before we dive into the events of 1975 to 77, let's understand the constitutional framework that made such declaration which is possible. So emergency provisions in India are outlined in part 18 of the constitution, which covers article 352 to 360. So these provisions were inspired by the Weimar Constitution of Germany and are meant for extraordinary situations that threaten the nation's integrity and security. So India recognized three types of emergencies, and which are national emergency and president rule and financial emergency. So national emergency under Article 352, president rule 356, financial emergency 360. So, national emergency is basically invoked during war, external aggression, or armed rebellion, right? And president rule is when a state constitutional machinery fails, and financial emergency when the financial stability is at risk. So, let's look at the background now. Now, what led to the declaration of this controversial emergency? The background is complex and politically charged. So, for several years, if you look at judicial and political tensions, for several years before 1975, the relationship between the judiciary and Indira Gandhi government was strained. It was not that good. Cases like Golak Nath versus State of Punjab and Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala, all these challenged the extent of Parliament's power to amend the constitution. And then the Raj Narain case in 1971 Lok Sabha elections. Indira Gandhi won but was accused of electoral malpractice by Raj Narain, her opponent. On June 12, 1975, the Allahabad High Court ruled against her and disqualified her from parliament and banning her from contesting elections for another 6 years. So now coming to the actual declaration of emergency, if you see, faced with political upheavals and the widespread protest which was led by Jayaprakash Narayan at that point of time, Indira Gandhi declared a national emergency on June 26, 1975 under Article 352, citing internal disturbance. Okay, and this allowed her government to bypass, normal constitutional process and wield significant power. So the key actions taken during the emergency, if you see, yes, first of all, suspension of fundamental rights, Article 19. And you see, what is Article 19 in this context, which ensures freedom of speech and expression was actually suspended at this point of time. Civil liberties were curtailed and, dissent was effectively silenced. So you cannot protest, right? So civil liberties is completely curtailed and the freedom of speech and expression is actually, again, restriction was there. So suspended. Now, while Article 20 and 21, which actually protect against conviction for offenses and ensure that right to life and liberty could still be upheld, most fundamental rights were restricted. Notably, the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, which was later ensured that Article 20 and 21 could never be suspended during any type of emergency. Okay, now coming to the next one is actually the media censorship. Yes, media censorship, censorship and mass arrest. See, the press faced strict censorship. Only government approved news could be published, and the newspaper officers faced power cuts, to prevent the printing of anti government content. So, a lot of such kind of issues was there. If you remember in history, we talk about Lord Lytton during 1877 times, Vernacular Press Act, right? 77, 78, that point of time. And exactly after 100 years, you see history is repeating in terms of another Indian Prime Minister. This time, it's by an Indian Prime Minister. So normally there are a lot of comparison between that two. Again, R.K. Lakshman's cartoons at this point of time, known for their satire was censored or published abroad to bypass restrictions. Actually, now coming to the mass arrest. Thousands of opposition leaders, activists, and protesters were arrested without any trial, like what happened during British time. So this included prominent figures again like Jayaprakash Narayan, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and Morarji Desai, etc. And protesters were met with severe crackdowns, spreading fear among the masses. This one was very controversial again, forced sterilization campaign. Sanjay Gandhi, Indira Gandhi's son, led a coercive sterilization campaign aimed at population control. And this campaign involved forced procedures which led to widespread resentment and further unrest and a lot of protest and unrest among the masses. Then coming to the next one, legislative overhaul. Okay, so the 42nd constitutional amendment, I think that's in the previous slide. Yeah, 42nd Constitutional Amendment 1976 was passed, dramatically increasing the executive power and limiting judicial independence again. So this period saw government influencing judicial appointments, appointing the judges favorable to its policies. So that was the situation at this point of time. Now we'll also discuss about the end of emergency. See, guys, we are discussing quickly so that you will get an idea. In case if you get a question, you should be in a position to write few points and to bring in your perspective. So the emergency lasted for around 21 months and ending on March 21, 1977. Elections were announced and Indira Gandhi and the Congress party suffered a resounding defeat. The Janata Party, an alliance of opposition parties, won the election and Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister. Again, now let's discuss about the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978. So, to prevent such an authoritarian episode from repeating, the Janata Party government introduced the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1978. And this amendment introduced several key changes like written cabinet advice. That's very important and significant. The president could only declare an emergency based on a written advice from the entire cabinet. That's one thing. Judicial review. The Supreme Court was empowered to review the validity of emergency proclamations. Then approval time frame. The period for obtaining parliamentary approval for emergency declaration was reduced from 2 months to 1 month, with a re-approval requiring every 6 months. Okay, so you can see the changes which have been made so that this kind of atrocities and situations won't arise again. Suspension of fundamental rights. Again, Article 19 could only be suspended during war or external aggression, not for internal disturbances. So this time it was internal disturbance and Article 19 was suspended. But here it is made clear now that Article 19 could only be suspended during war or external aggression, not for internal disturbance. Internal disturbance can be anything. Even the Naxalite attack can be an internal disturbance, right? So that is not possible. Now, this legacy. See, the 1975 emergency is remembered as a stark reminder of how democratic institutions can be challenged. See, it highlighted the power that the executive could wield during crisis. It also strengthened the resolve of Indian democracy through corrective measures like the 44th Amendment Act also. So that's about the legacy that I want to discuss. And I just want to conclude this. See, the 1975-77, this emergency serves as a historical lesson on the importance of checks and balances within a democracy. So it was a time when India faced severe test of its democratic values, but it ultimately emerged strong and more resilient. The legacy of this period still influences the political and constitutional discourse in modern India. So, guys, that's about this session. The intention of this session is basically to quickly convey the message and something about this emergency and not to discuss in depth of it. If I go in depth, it is going to be too long, but that's actually not required. Need to have an idea. In case if you get a question from the post-independence India part, you should be aware of certain things and you should be in a position to write. Okay, so you need to be in a position to bring your opinion. That's what the idea of this session. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much. See you in the next session.